I'm Naomi Zauderer, the chair of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. We will consider the minutes from the last meeting at our next meeting on April 15th. Tonight, we will discuss the CFB's plans to help 20,000 naturalized citizens register to vote in 2020. We are joined here and will hear from some of our partners in this 20K in 2020 initiative. We hope to discuss strategies for how we can achieve this ambitious goal together. That starts with the Days of Action events we will hold in March with community partners in Brooklyn and Queens. We invite community groups who want to join in this important effort to sign up today for our training sessions. Information and the RSVP is available on the CFB's website. Empowering youth voters to participate in elections is another main focus for NYC Vote staff. This week, we kicked off one of our major youth initiatives for 2020 with training sessions for student leaders in all 5 boroughs. We are encouraging these student leaders who attend to host voter registration drives at their schools for Civics Week from March 2nd to March 9th. Students who attend will learn about voting patterns in New York City, voter registration best practices, and how to plan a drive at their school. On February 21st, NYC Votes will host a voting summit at CUNY's BMCC campus. The summit will feature speakers, workshops, and breakout sessions on organizing skills, adaptive leadership, issues-based organizing, and voter rights for students and campus leaders. Sign up for all of these events is available on the CFB's website. With all of these exciting programs in the works, we must remember that Queens voters will be selecting their next borough president next month. So a reminder, the CFB will publish a voter guide with information about the candidates running for this office. Watch for news from NYC Votes on social media and your email about the guide in the coming weeks. And with that, I will turn it over to Executive Director Amy Loprest.
Thank you. So as the chair said, we are busy preparing for the Queensborough president special election. We made public funds payments to 2 candidates in that election last month. Also last month, we met with a delegation of representatives from the Electoral Commission of Tokyo, and they were interested in the public financing program, but they were also very interested in our voter education and outreach efforts, and they shared with us some of their materials that they had produced to encourage youth to vote in Tokyo. Apparently, the problem of getting young people interested in politics and getting out to vote is a universal one, and so they were interested in hearing what we were doing, and we were very interested in hearing what they had done and seeing some of the materials that they produced. So all in all, a very good cultural exchange with our comrades from Tokyo.
Thank you. And now for a report from Public Affairs.
Thanks. Just a couple of quick notes before we move into our discussion. We've talked with the committee previously about our 2 main voter engagement campaigns we've got going for over this year and next. Just to report briefly on our youth outreach goal, we are kicking off a voter pledge campaign with CUNY with an event on February 21st, the end of next week at BMCC. And that'll be a great start to that campaign, which again, our hope is to push to double voter turnout for voters 29 and under in the November 2021 election. Youth turnout in local elections has been traditionally low, and that's going to be our focus really through this year and next, building that out. Also, just on the youth front, we have been collaborating with City Hall on Civics Week, which will be out in the high schools the week of March 2nd. Our principal role in that registration effort in the schools, we've been working with student leaders from some of the high schools that are going to be conducting registration activities amongst their peers. On the immigrant front, and just to kind of frame the conversation that we're going to have in a few minutes. We're kicking that work off with days of action planned for March, and we'll be training people throughout this month and next to help us with that. But I think there are a couple of points I would love to kind of just lay out as we kind of before we hear from the folks who have joined us. Again, this is our 20K and 20 campaign. We were aiming to register 20,000 New Yorkers in target neighborhoods throughout Brooklyn and Queens. But so to talk about the scope a little bit, 1 in 4 citizens in New York City are naturalized. It's a huge portion of the eligible voter pool. But while we don't have individual level data on voting behavior among naturalized citizens, the data we do have suggests strongly that naturalized citizens aren't participating in elections at the same level as other voters. What we've learned and through our research, and this is in our voter assistance report from last year, it's not only a language access problem, it's not necessarily limited English proficiency that drives turnout lower, it's the level of naturalized citizens in a particular district. So again, we've chosen the districts we've identified, the neighborhoods we've identified throughout the city, with persistently low voter turnout and high levels of immigrant eligible voters in kind of South Brooklyn, Bensonhurst East and West, Brighton Beach, Homecrest, and Sunset Park East, and in Eastern Queens, the neighborhoods of Elmhurst, Jamaica, Queensboro Hill, Richmond Hill, and South Ozone Park. We were discussing a few minutes ago before we started, the sort of push on the council to expand the franchise to non-citizens, to permanent residents and green card holders. I think that's a great topic for a future discussion. I think our focus and the programming that we're building for this year and next is to do more to engage immigrant voters who are eligible to vote today. And so just to lay that for folks, and Naomi, I'll look back to you to kind of help lead the conversation. I know we had a couple of late cancellations, so sorry for that. But Eddie, we're really pleased you're able to join us.
Sure. I don't know how.
Yes, sure. Do you have a prepared statement, or would you like to talk generally about
Maybe I
the
can
work?
tell you some of the things that we are doing.
Sure.
First and foremost, I would just want to say that this is a great idea. I commend the work of what the NYC is doing. Yesterday, we hosted in our office the civic training the trainers, and it was outstanding to hear from many of these young students, young folks, young leaders, as you would call them. How they were really engaging with the presentation that was prepared by NYC. I'm very, very excited, that we're going to be part of it, because it was the presentation was very well put together. You didn't have a lot of slides, and I saw that there was a good integration for the young people, really realizing, where why our community doesn't vote, and specifically in the area of the Bronx, where we have the lowest turnout from 18 to 29. So I just want to say that we have a plan. We have a voting plan for this year. A lot of times we talk about voting, but at the end of the day, it's getting the people, our community, to get out the vote. I think that's our biggest task that we have here. Our projected numbers for this year will be 10,000 registrations, and we plan to do it through the partnership that we have at the citizenship swearing-in ceremonies that leads us into this evening, how we can connect immigrants to voting registration. And I just could tell you, in our experience, we started out doing voter registration. That was our main mission, but we found that there were a lot of people that we encountered that really wanted to become U.S. citizens. So we started to amass a database in terms of those people that could not register to vote. And what we did was we put together a naturalization program that today we could say is a state-of-the-art program, because we do a lot of large workshops throughout the community, through the different boroughs. And we have been able to partner, that I would think will be very important, with CUNY Citizenship now, who has been doing this for the last 20 years, in terms of attorneys, pro bono attorneys, volunteers. I just give you an example. This past week, we did a naturalization free application workshop at George Washington High School campus in Upper Manhattan. We registered 150 people. From that, we were able to have 104 people prepare their N-400s, their application, so they could submit it to become U.S. citizens. 2 weeks ago, we did it in Ostos Community College. I could tell you the demand of the list of people, of community that are so desperate of becoming U.S. citizens. That was 137 people that were processed. So far this year, we have, connected to the path to citizens, I would say since January, close to 500 people, So what we do is we have a database, we call them, we inform them through social media, the information of what they have to bring. I brought some flyers just to get an idea. Become a U.S. citizens. We have a code bar where they could get all the information and requirements. So we have found that this has been very helpful for us because when they become U.S. citizens, either they contact us, come to the office, or call us and ask us where we're going to be in what particular neighborhood. We find that most people or most organizations, they target what they call prime voters, but the new voters that are registered, and you are able to channel them to the proper poll sites, where they could vote information, they will become permanent voters in our experience, working, in the last 5 years. We have, in the last 5 years, channeled close to 5,000 people to the path to citizenship, providing that information. And I think that's the way we're going to connect. I think when CUNY citizenship now started, they started with voter registration and they had to go into naturalization. So it goes together, it goes together. The other thing is that a lot of times it's the educational component, and many of the new immigrants do not understand that in order for you to vote in a primary, you need to be enrolled in a political party. So if they don't understand very well this, to vote in the general election because they think they're not in the system. So it's a lot of issues, that we have encountered, and it's all the communications. The communities and in terms of naturalizations, there are a lot of organizations that are working in this field. As today they're looking at to increasing the fees, changing all of the process of fee waivers. So it's a way to really connect. And we feel that every person that you help with a citizenship application, you could connect to 3 people per family, So it's not only those people that are not yet U.S. citizens, but their relatives, their children, that young people that they could register to vote and be a supportive mechanism. So, that's our contribution in terms of what we see here. Some of the things that we have connected through the Parent Teachers Association. A lot of times they don't go to the school meetings, but when we tell them that we're going to have a small workshop for citizenship and getting information, some of the principal schools that we work with, they find a way of attraction. Faith-based organizations also is another way of connecting. This is very similar to what they're talking about today as the census, because this is an immigrant city, and it's not only Dominicans, but it's people from West African, Central America, South America, Europe. So I'm glad that you're looking to see how you could connect, in terms of, immigrants and becoming a U.S. citizen. I also think that it's very important, for in some way or shape or form, that some budget could be allocated in order to promote within, the ethnic media. I always mention that because I think that's very important. It's not only Telemundo and Univision. We have local newspapers, PSAs, we have a partnership with Naleo Educational Fund. And when we promote the citizenship workshops, we get free PSA from Telemundo, Univision, the local community stations. But coming from a source such important like NYC Votes, I think it would be very important to really target, those different ethnic newspapers. That's, what I could say.
Thank you. So What are people talking about in immigrant communities around the time of the elections?
First of all, a lot of times, they don't know the candidates, the information. There is not sufficient information in terms they don't do anything. Why should I vote? Those are the questions that they have. We had an experience working with early voting. In some of the sites, people were saying when we did the outreach, they said no, that's too far. I'm not going to go. So providing that information, but it's basically the trust. They don't see the elected officials, until it's election time. So in some instances in the Bronx, we found that, maybe the poll sites are very far, it's not accessible to transportation very easily. In northern Manhattan, we had a lot of problems with the poll sites that they had for early voting. They were like 100 blocks apart. One was 122nd Street, the other one was on 193rd Street. In the South Bronx, they had it on 161st Street. You couldn't cover Hunts Point. You couldn't cover, south of 161st Street. So just informing the people, and providing that information, I think, it helps. And a lot of times they want to see candidates that represent their community, So, they come out and vote if they see, then they could relate to someone, within the community itself, So you might have someone that are really very active in the community, that knows the community in comparison to someone that, they don't know. Those are, some of the, issues that we have encountered. But I think at the end of the day, it's trust, What is it going to do? What's going to happen? Will my vote count?
So building on that, I guess the question is, one of the things we are planning on ours is, some advertising campaigns related to, in ethnic media. And obviously, an ad can't build that trust that, so the question is, what would you suggest is the thing to focus on? Because, obviously people need to know who the candidates are, but they also need to know, the citizenship process focused on the federal government, and we're talking about local government and how to explain that, and what areas would you focus on? It's you have whatever, a page ad in a newspaper, or 30 seconds on a radio. What kinds of things should we bring to the fore, do you think?
Well, I'll give you an example. The New York Historical Society has developed a great program where they are going through artifacts and teaming with community organizations and providing classes so people could civically, we have one in our office. We have provided it, it's like it's on a Saturday, it's on a weekday. They have been very successful, in terms of making sure that people understand how, what is the civic process, how you pass the exam is 100 questions and you get out of them 20. So it's that preparation and that information that really helps. The other is connecting with community-based organizations. There are a lot of organizations that are working, with citizenship. I think also there is the workforce development program from the cities. They have offices throughout the city. How do you connect with them? Because most of those people that are looking, there's a lot of foreign-born, U.S. citizens, people that are looking for jobs. So if you are able to connect with those agencies, it's not only the city agencies, but those organizations that provide service within the community. I think that's a way that could help. And then you need somebody not to just leave the flyers but come in and talk to the people, when they are having training to prepare resumes or how to navigate the workforce. What we produce and what we sell is that becoming a U.S. citizen provide you, first of all, with a U.S. passport. You have the same rights as someone that's born in the United States, and the other, you could get federal jobs, you could get scholarships. So it's that it's that way of really connecting with the community. And I know it's expensive, to go into the media, but social media today is They will tell their parents, I mean, they will, we see it because we develop the application to become U.S. citizens is 20 pages. And they're looking at it, to be eliminated. So we develop a program in conjunction with an organization called Citizenship Works, where they could do it online in Spanish, and when they come to the event for the application to be reviewed, it just get printed. So the time is a lot easier. So we have been finding out that a lot of times it's their children that are filling out the application. So you see, there is a connection within a family. I don't know if that answers your question, in terms, but it's when we also doing, and I think the most part is you're going to be doing data of action and information, provide information, how important, how you could become a U.S. citizen, and put the links. There's a lot of links, that helps. The USCIS, they have a certain phone apps, they could do it online. They could, they study for the questions. So it's a lot of tool out there. The problem is that there is not sufficient, organizations and funding, to really do this. I mean, when we put an event together for 125, 150 people, you need 40 or 50 volunteers and attorneys, which is very hard to get, pro bono attorneys, immigration attorneys. So there is a lot of, also you could tap to, there is the different bar association. Brooklyn Bar Association does a great job. The Dominican Bar Association, it's there.
The question that I had for you is, how do you find your own volunteers, even for the voter registration? Because you said there isn't enough funding for it. So
yes, we learn from CUNY for best practices. There is an organization that we are part of. It's a collaborative of over 150 organizations called the New American Campaign. They, in the last 10 years, they have been able to process close to 250 citizenship applications. So we all learn best practices. So every state, they're in 22 states. So New York is one of the largest producers of citizenship applications. And what we do is we learn best practices in terms of getting attorneys. So we have, in that group, we have Catholic Charities, Miquan, New York Immigration Coalition, CUNY. So we all put up resources together to really have volunteers, in terms of, having an event. There's a calendar. You could look at, at the site. We have a calendar of all of the events that is prepared throughout the year. And so we get a lot of support from each other. And the Bar Association, they provide, a lot of support. And there's also, which is going to be eliminated, there is, you don't have to be an attorney, but a Department of Justice accredited person, that's going to be eliminated within the administration. There's a lot of people that have the expertise and they can really review the applications. It's an accreditation as an immigration attorney. So, we learn. So we get interns, volunteers at the, colleges and people that are interested in helping. And they continue, it's beautiful. You're invited to see one of the events. 3 months ago, we did one at the Brooklyn Borough Hall, where sometimes it gets difficult to find a location, but this is the third year we have done it. And it's a way where they help us with, the food for volunteers, the chairs, the location, and they also help to promote. So within their promotion, they have attorneys that will volunteer and also help out. For 10 applications, you need one attorney to be reviewed. So we are, we have a system on that.
So you've talked a lot about reaching out to people to become naturalized citizens. But to return to what was mentioned previously, the problem, part of the problem is that even after people are naturalized, they're still not voting in the same proportion as the rest of the city. And so what are the barriers to their voting, and how can we help overcome them?
Doing the process of, communicating with them, in terms of finding ways through either social media. They like to use a lot of WhatsApp, informing them this is the election time. If you have a voter registration program, and you have all the information, you have the data, it's good to at least call them as a quality care call. You're going to get your voter registration card within 4 to 6 weeks. Remember, be alert. So it's a new phenomenon that we're seeing, in terms after the 2016 election, where you have this surge of immigrants becoming U.S. citizens. So we've seen that path, but we have seen an increase. Oh, we did an analysis, and just looking at 2016, we were able to mobilize 23% in comparison to 18% from for other groups, other Latinos and other ethnic group. So it's just that communications, and being constantly, letting them know that you have an elections. The other is that a lot of times there's a lot of confusion because we have 4 and 5 elections, in a year. We have an election now for as is mentioned, for Brooklyn, Queensboro president. We have people that are not in tune like we are, because this is what we do. But there is a federal primary in April. Things have changed in comparison to previous years, where we have been on June 23rd. You have in the Congressional Assembly, Senate. Before it only used to be the federal, depending on in June, and then the general election. So September would not be there. So it's it's confusing. It's confusing just having everybody. Oh, I'm going to go and vote in this particular districts. So that's why you don't have such a large turnout from in primaries.
Right. Yeah, it's not just confusing for immigrants.
I don't know at all. I'm
It's
just telling you some of the
yeah.
experience that we've had. We go a lot. We do a lot of with the local TV programs, because every ethnic, immigrant, they have connection with their homeland, with their country. There is a lot of media that they, online, that the information from the country and from here is being connected. We use a lot of those channels. We do Optimum and Spectrum. They have specific programs for Dominicans and others, so we try to connect with them and tell them, there's going to be election is coming on this day, that we could do a little commercial, 30 seconds, very inexpensive. A lot of times they will do it, for free, because they know it's helping to empower our community and be part of what this great nation has to offer, which is, the ability to vote, which is so important that maybe you might not have. I will give you an example. In the Dominican Republic, we have dual nationality. You could vote for the elections in Dominican Republic, and you could vote as a U.S. citizens. So we're going through the same thing. When you said, youth are not, young people are not voting. We have a municipal election on the 18th of February and the presidential election in May. So when we started, they were more concerned about the president, the politics and presidential election back home than here. So they didn't participate. So now they're participating. Now they see, it's important because this is what they live. So we got a big road, and turnouts. I think the biggest challenge that we have, immigrants, if you're able to connect with the young people, what you're doing with this initiative, those young people, when we learned that with our summer youth employment program students that we had, where we train them, and part of the training, you were very supportive with it during the summer. They went out, we trained them to do voter registration. But one of the things that we instructed them, you first start in your home. Take this, you go to your house, you tell, you register your parents, and then, as an assignment, and then you go to the building where you live and register. So I think that's a good connection. Our focus has to be on the young people, and then if you could connect, that, focus through, naturalization of immigration, they could bring that message back home. And some schools are very smart and they are doing this, I feel that I'm taking a lot of the, that one.
Should I guess.
Yes.
do want to just add, so Eddie and I have been talking because he's one of the partners for Sunset Park and in Queens. And he did bring these because he did say, like, if we want to register people in the communities that we're going into, there are people, family members in their households who want this information. So we'll be working together on how we can include, like, as we register people, if they're members of their families who want information on how to get naturalized, that the information that Eddie has, that he has with his partners through CUNY and New Americans Campaign, will also be available. He had brought that up yesterday, and that's why he brought them, because I thought it would be, again, it's about not just registering them, engaging them, and then serving the community, because there's that lack of trust. And so this just gives them that other piece of engagement there. So we're going to try to see how we can provide that information for the people we're engaging through voting.
I wonder if you could talk just a little bit more about the lack of trust. You know, what is the origin of that?
Well, we've been talking about, before I answer you the question, so I don't forget, and I didn't prepare a script or anything because we do this every day, a good resource that we have, and we get to the question of trust, is the Consul General's office. We work with the Consul General. There's a consular office that represents each country. We are allowed, through an agreement with the Consul General's office of the Dominican Republic, we go there and we inform, those people that visit, and we get a lot of contact information of people wanting to become U.S. citizens, informing about voting. So that's another pool that you could look into with Mexico, Colombia, large, West Africa, and Nigeria, so I think that's, pool. I don't know if you have the staff to do it, but I think that's very important. And your question in terms of trust? Well, we started out with the census, right? And I'll go back a little bit. And one of the things since 2018 that they started to say that you're going to have an immigration question. So you start there,
Citizenship question.
Citizenship
right.
question, so you have the citizenship question.
Right.
So I'll give you an example. We did on April 1st, we did an outreach. We had tables at certain commercial corridors, and people were afraid to provide a lot of information in terms of trust. They don't know what it's going to be used for, what the information is going to be used for. So that's what I mean, trust. Wow, if I register, will I have a problem? That one things they say is, will I have to go to jury duty? So now what we have the census on April 1st. There's confidentiality, and there's a whole series of things. So we have a presidential primary, and we are getting a lot of information out there. So people can, immigrants are a little bit concerned, in terms of all these things that is taking place, and that's what I meant when I say, trust. And also trust has to be that is a reliable source that you're giving the information, somebody that is trusted within your own community. When we go to a commercial corridor, we just don't go and stand in a corner. They know, we speak to the branch manager. We tell them what we're doing. They kind of like that, the grocery, the supermarket. So that's what I mean by trust. But the community, the immigrant community feel they're under attack. That's the reality. And hopefully we will, work, make sure that everybody gets counted, and there's, there is, protection, that's it. Because that's what's going to, at the end of the day, that's when I was putting the resources into the community funding. And we might, lose congressional representation, in terms if we're losing population. So everything goes connected. Everything goes connected.
Thank you. I have a question. As per your conversation, whatever you're saying, I understand that you are targeting only one Dominican Latino, or you are combined collaboration any other ethnicity like a South Asian, Bangladeshi, any other?
Everybody that we come in contact with, we Miquan, we with other organizations, New York Immigration Coalition, but in our scope of work, we don't, when we go to the particular event, If it's an event with the Merchant Association, everybody that, we come in contact. There's a question because we are DUSA, DUSA, Dominicanos USA. We started this because a lot of, the funding, we haven't received funding from state or federal. It's been all private, people, Dominican business people that really want to help the community. And, the cost for voter registration, I don't know if you know, it's about, for us, it's about $27. That's per course, it's not because we do this every day, and this is data from foundations, that they have put together numbers, so it will even be for other organizations that don't do in volume, a lot, because you have to have train, you have to have data, you have to have all series of things that you have to, combine. But it's everybody that we come in contact with.
Thank you. I have another question is that, did you ever contacted with the city council members to have a town hall meeting or something about voter registration to be turned out more, or to engage city council members to be how to promote, how to engage community, because minority community is still confusing about the voting issue.
Mm-hmm.
What is your target? How you can turn out more to engage community? What do you think?
Again, we have certain relationship with maybe several, council people, but our focus has been more talking, going through the community events. We cover a lot of community events. That could be, the health, health programs, through the community. We attend, let's say if there is a college fair. So that's been, meetings that we put together, in terms of just talking about the importance of not only voting, but citizenship, but not, we don't have that, the relationship that we have is with the council people, where they provide, they get the information that we get, and they also refer. But having like a town hall meeting and things like that, no, we haven't.
This is very important because our city council is getting bored from the community. If they are not engaged with our community, we cannot turn out more. And another thing is that what you already mentioned, that social media has to know that the voting system. Social media has to giving the masses, this is the time is a registration period, or party change. These are the things media has to promote our community, multimedia. Those are the bilingual. This is important, I understand that. But the way you spoke, I really love it. And that is not the only, we are not ending the solution. We have to involve a community to bilingual, by ethnicity, collaboration, and engage more organization. I know some of the organization did not get fund, still they are running on it. Try to engage those organizations. And moreover, our intention, the Campaign Finance Board, our intention to engage leaders so that you can bring some of them from there. And let's go. Our next, this 2021 target, engage leaders to be promote them, giving the message. Our vote is coming, registration is coming, party change is going on. These are the messages has to be created, collaboration, bilingual, and social media has to engage. I think that is the great idea to promote this.
Yes.
We want from you.
Especially, I think, looking at what's going to be in 2021, I mean, you're going to play a very important role because every elected office is going to be up, So if you start now, and I was telling this to Sabrina yesterday, there was about 20 young people, and I was amazed, the way they were connecting. And, some of them are 17 years old, they'll be 18 years old. So they will be the ones that will be coming out and doing things that, which is a great idea, training all these young people. They could go back to their classes and, inform and talk about the importance of civic participation and register. That's what's going to, move the needle. I also think, you mentioned something in terms of this forum with CUNY. CUNY, we go to some of the campuses where we know there's a lot, there is a need in the Bronx community, Hostos, Borough Manhattan Community College. They have registered. They're great doing registration. Now, how can you connect and really do a bigger push, in terms of, having those registered can coming out and vote? That's, maybe talking about net neutrality, the what's going on in the telecommunications, and broadbands, things that, young people are interested. You got to give them, get involved with esports, we have to find ways to connect, I mean, I could talk here all night long because I know there are other people, but we did something that was very amazing. Out of this, if you think you need a rocket scientist to do it, we are engaging young people to participate in civic engagement through esports, and we've been visiting some of the schools. They have clubs, and we put together a gamers meet at Microsoft, and we did this in November, and it was like, we sent out, they did it through social media, we have, this is our young people in their office, Leo, who's, I wish I could have him here. He loves that, since he was a little kid, he's been with, he says, don't worry, over 100, people signed up, and we only had a space for 65 and this was done. So we said, wow, this is interesting. We got to connect, So what we did in December, we put together another gamers meet, and we did voter registration. We told them, man, what? How can you register? Wow, nobody ever told me. You use a lot of internet. There is a lot of areas that don't have internet. It's very costly. There's some legislation. So it's that connection. It's that person to person. And I mean, you talk about online voter registration. What is online voter registration? You send it. You register with the board of with the motor vehicles, and then they send you an application. I mean, we're in the 21st century, so these young people are, it's that connection. It's that connection. I don't know.
Should we open it up for public testimony?
Wait, what happened to the other two people?
They're not here.
They had emergencies at the last minute.
Oh, yes.
Unfortunately. We're not cutting them off. They just
Right.
no, they had a last
Good
minute
idea.
cancellation. So, sorry, we're go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, this gentleman is absolutely correct. I work with an organization called Kids Voting USA.
Oh,
It's trust is. I'm an election attorney, so I see this. I've been working with voting for 3 years. The Lawyers Council for the last 15 years doing voter protection around the country, around this state, whether by design, happenstance, dumb luck. The way that we vote in New York State, it's unpopular to say, is as suppressive as when I grew up in the South, Virginia. It's as suppressive as that. And whether that's because of ignorance, and that's, gentleman is absolutely right about trust. This organization, Kids Voting USA, which I would implore this organization to look at, has been teaching young people civics at the age of 3. There are children 3 and 4 years old in this country, in states around this country, that will vote in the presidential at their school. Mm-hmm. At their school. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I tried to get this going in 2012. Superstorm Sandy kind of screwed up our election that year. But it's amazing. I was in Las Vegas in 2011. The entire arena was filled with 8th graders, packed to the gills, wanting to vote, engaged. And trust, the gentleman's right. Ignorance breeds fear, and fear breeds mistrust. And politicians, elected officials, show up around mid-September. They're all over you, and the election ends, and you don't see them again for another 2 years, or when the special election shows up and they're back again. As I tell candidates that I work with, incumbents, candidates, the great thing about this is a hand-to-hand sport. Hand-to-hand, individuals. Kids voting is all about teaching civics, which we don't do in New York anymore, because I learned researching this about 10 years ago is that because we were doing so poorly on civics in general, so instead of teaching civics. We just decided we'll just take it off the exam, and therefore no one's going to be failing civics anymore. And that's why people don't know anything about what's going on, because we don't teach them anything. Basically, I mean, you see elected officials, dropping you because they don't like what you say. Well, what did they say? If you don't like the heat, don't get in the kitchen. It's a crucible of ideas. You get on the soapbox and you exchange ideas. My point is, I think that we should be starting to teach civics, and the gentleman is absolutely correct. The only time that elected officials, and this isn't an indictment, I'm thrilled, but what I would say is, instead of just focusing on 17-year-olds, because kids are smart, they grow up in New York City, they're smart, they know the score. They know the score. They can see right through it. They know. You're showing up, I'm 17. Let me see, I'm going to vote next year. Gee, you're interested in me now. How about when I was 14? How about when I was 12? How about when I was 10? And 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, I have a 12-year-old son. They're interested in the kids who are 17. So when the 17-year-old goes and he goes to what sounds like this great event that you're having, and I think it's fantastic. I applaud the commission. This is great stuff. So when the 17-year-old at CUNY goes back and talks to his brother or sister, a kid in the neighborhood who's 12, they want to be cool. They want to hang out with the college kids. I know, I have a son. He wants to hang out with the college kids. He's in 6th grade, right? So when the 17-year-old, not when we, I'm old, middle-aged. I don't think so. I know. I look in the mirror. I know the deal.
You don't see the grade.
But it's when the 17-year-old, goes out there in the social media, and so I would say when you're teaching civics in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, then they know what the election is. Then they know when to show up. And then just the last point is, and I know this, we can't do anything about this, but I've always thought, why doesn't the federal government impose, since we hand out licenses with the FCC, we want to start a TV station, radio station, social media, good Lord, they seem to have plenty of cash. I don't think it will hurt Mr. Zuckerberg's bottom line. Look at the camera, Mr. Zuckerberg. I don't think it's going to hurt your bottom line if you happen, because I know a lot of candidates spend money on Facebook in their ads. It's very effective, as we all know. Maybe since we're licensing you and giving you the airwaves in which you're making all this money, maybe we can impose upon you to possibly send out a few PSAs for free, so that your budget isn't cut. So that you're not cut. What I mean is, so you're not expending resources that you could be putting into the neighborhood, like this gentleman said, in terms of getting people engaged out on the street day after day after day. We get on a soapbox, but I just would like that.
No, that's good.
He's absolutely 100% correct, and I applaud the commission. And I think that this is great stuff. But I think in terms of the trust, it is exactly that. I nod away because it's a vicious cycle, and that if you're not out there every day, there is a mistrust and there's a cynicism that's bred, and it starts early. And then and this is what I noticed about the kids voting. As Jones said, my last point. What I noticed, and I implore you to look it up. I wish I had the study here. What it said about kids voting, and I think this is especially true for naturalized citizens, people especially here in New York, and why I think it's so important, is that when the child comes home from school and starts talking about current affairs, their parents, who might not know anything about what's going on because they're more engaged back home and they just got here, they come home and they start saying, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm reading the paper at school. Hey, what about this? It tends to get the adult engaged. And what they have found empirically is that these states where they have the kids voting and they're engaged, voter turnout goes up. All of us in here, professionals who are in election law, we know what the voter turnout is. What was it? I mean, with a primary, my God, a couple of years ago, we were in single digits. I mean, that's I don't know. I mean, personally, I just think that's shameful. A country like this is supposed to be the gold standard for voter participation. We are 7%. I mean, you're living and dying for the right, freedom, and people like, I don't want to vote. My goodness, why not? My goodness, isn't that the point of the exercise is to vote? Use the franchise. I'm sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. I would just like to echo what this gentleman said.
Thank you.
5 times over. He's absolutely 100% right.
Oh, thank you.
The commission does. I look forward to you being more out in the neighborhood.
But you are right. Apathy. Trust. It was so interesting, and I go back to last night because I saw a big difference in other years that we have done the program. And a young lady says, "Can I register my mother?" Because the election, you need to have to vote in the in the presidential primary, and the 14th is the last day that you could register. So it was told, so she said, so I'm going to take it to register. And then she and who was the young lady that was doing the training?
Olivia.
Olivia, great, I mean, I'll hire her on the spot. And she says, oh, okay, you fill it out and you could take it, but you have to be stamped. And, she took the application, you're right, but if you were able to help the younger, and we noticed that with the summer youth employment, we started to take 14 years old, and we've seen, because we connect, they understand. And the other thing, I don't like to say it, when you talk to an elected officials, getting back to your question of, I don't know what to say, they say young people don't vote, so young people don't vote. So where they go? Well, I mentioned in the beginning, those prime voters, those people that are, so you don't vote. So I don't, that's how it's connection.
And the other thing, I heard some of you talking before the meeting, but I mean, another thing in terms of confusion, and I don't think it was meant this way, but New York has, it is, I say earlier, suppressive because that rule of if you don't change your registration, what's it, 300 and something days before the next election, you're unable to vote. I mean, that catches a lot of people. I know we recently changed that rule, but it was only for certain events. So there's going to be, and I heard some of you all talking, couldn't help it, talking about this very issue that is going to trip up a huge number. And full disclosure, I will be advising, my clients that I work with, the candidates and elected officials, this is going to be a problem. They're going to show up for the presidential primary in April, and then they're going to try to show up for their primary in June, and then they go, sorry, you're out of the box. And they go, how's that possible? How's that possible? I could vote in April, I can't vote in June, or whatever. The things are changing so rapidly, and suppressed. I mean, the CFP, my goodness, with all the changes that are going on that have happened so rapidly, I mean, they should be giving you not only combat pay, but they should be giving you double the budget to handle the regulatory aspect of this, because you're having for the next 2021, you have 2 different campaign finance systems going on. I mean, that is great for us, the election law business, but I'd rather it not be. I'd rather, but I know, again, to this gentleman's point, and the confusion, and again, I'll stop.
Thank you. Now we need your help.
Would anyone else like to testify from the public, or just make any comments or remarks?
I agree that you have to start kids younger. I said, when I was in elementary school, we had a mock presidential election. I won't divulge what presidential election that was. It was a long time ago. but I mean, it really, it sparked an interest, a desire. And, that's, I think, that kind of people understanding that it's, that you can vote and that it does make a difference. It's like you're a little kid and you're like, oh, I'm voting for president. I mean, you're not really, but you're, you feel like part of the process.
I will add, we did a kids voting pilot. Was that last year? No, 2 years ago now.
2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago we did it, and it was very well received. We did it with an elementary. I strongly believe we have to start younger, and then our workshops are also open to as young as like freshmen in high school, just to kind of get that open discussion going. But you're right, like, I mean, I still remember the things I would bring home and make my parents do. So.
Yeah, I have the same memory of having a vote in my classroom in 3rd grade, in 76, in the 76 presidential election. So it was very exciting.
This is the arena. I mean, I'll pass it around.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the arena in Las Vegas. I mean, these are 8th graders, and you're packing. I was blown away.
Yeah.
I mean, kids voting in Las Vegas had it's packed. I mean, these kids, and what they did was, they debated. Yeah, exactly. It's a big arena. It was packed. What they did is they debated certain issues. So they took kids and they took the elected officials. Oh, you should have seen that. I mean, the kids got it really quick. They debated, I remember, and this is 8 years ago. One of the questions was, from a public policy person, is, should we keep producing the penny? Should we also suspend kids from school who are bad? And the one on the penny I found interesting, just from the policy standpoint. It costs a nickel to make a penny. And but then the one about the suspension was incredible. You should have heard the eighth grader. I mean, you had elected local officials debating the eighth graders, and the kids were very interesting point. The one I need to go over to the elected officials. They better watch out for this person. They're coming. They said, "Why are you suspending the kid who misbehaves? You're giving him what he wants. You're giving him exactly what he wants." And I thought, wow, that is a keen observation. Why are you sending him home? He's going home. He's going to watch TV all day long. He's going to play on Xbox. I don't know if they had Xbox, but he's going to get exactly what he wants. Or she for 8 days and come back to school. Oh, they're going to be loving it, and they're going to be grinding away at school all day. And why suspend them? Have some other punishment. But my point was, they're very smart. They're very sharp. I mean, they really gave the elected officials all they could handle. I mean, these 12-year-olds really gave them all they could handle. But anyway, my point is, like I said, like you're saying, I mean, they will show up. I mean, the enthusiasm. They had these little things when they voted. I mean, it was overwhelming. Really was.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Are you having a voters guide, what is going to be for the next elections in the state, the federal, or it will only be in 2021?
We'll have online ones for the other elections for online, and the print one for the city elections.
For the city elections. But you'll have now one for the presidential, and you'll have one for that. That is so great, I mean, I think that's very informative, what you do. So.
Yeah. And, we do have alerts to, with a lot of our partners that go out with the election date alerts. So, remember that Valentine's Day Friday is the date to change your party enrollment.
We have a really cute graphic on social media that
The other thing I just wanted to add, when we were, our office was registering some young people recently, and one of the questions that kept coming up from the young people were, how do we get reminders? And so we were sending them to the website to vote. Yeah. They said, well, how do we get the information?
Yeah.
Because, no one's talking to them about elections. And so we began to direct them where they can sign up for notifications and stuff like that. So just wanted to highlight that. It might be worthwhile to invest in giving them a pathway.
It's definitely important. I'm having 2 teenage nieces. You have to remind them to do everything. I mean, it's certainly not on their. It's they wouldn't remember to eat if they it's like you remember you're supposed to go to school. All the things. It's like so definitely important to remind young people.
And there's so many elections.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the greatest barriers to participation. Yeah.
Yeah.
The number of elections that we have. Yeah.
I mean, having the 10-day early voting period helps with that reminders, because when it was just one day, it's like if people, somebody says to you, you saw somebody wearing the I voted sticker, or, now I remember it's election day, but it's too late, or you didn't plan it in your schedule. It's like now you have 10 days to kind of be aware of it. So that will help, hopefully, too.
Any other comments? Well, I'd very much like to thank everyone who attended, and particularly those of you who shared with us the great work that you're doing. And keep up the good work, and keep coming and telling us about it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.